Hey y'all, hi, welcome back to my channel. It is a gloomy Tuesday evening. We are officially in November, and here in Ontario, almost all of the leaves have already fallen. So that beautiful moment of vibrant, gorgeous, deep amber and gold and orange fall has passed us by, and we are kind of being thrust into that middle ground between the cozy fall and impending winter. It's a little depressing out there. But today we are going to dive into kind of my new everyday fall face slash also kind of a favorites video. We'll do a more robust favorites video probably next time, but this specifically is kind of my everyday face. I have fallen in love with a few brand new products. Haven't really shown them very much on here. Some of them are kind of the usual mainstays, but there's a small handful that is just like chef's kiss. I'm obsessed, and they really just come together to make the perfect kind of everyday fall makeup look, especially, you know, when I am spending most of my days working from home. It's not too much makeup. It's perfect if I want to just kind of throw on real fast and head out the door, you know, hang out with my boyfriend, go out for a dinner. It's just perfect. It's easy, it's lovely, and it just fits the fall mood in kind of tone and texture. But I also wanted to kind of come full circle back to like the original intention of my channel here, which was to have, you know, real conversations and dig into really important kind of world events and feelings. And I would be remiss to not kind of address what's happening in the world right now. And you know, we're now a full month into the war between Israel and Gaza and Palestine. It's such a curious, we're living through such a strange moment in time, a moment in history, where we have a very, very, very intense front seat to kind of wars and tragedies in such specific, intense detail. And we are being bombarded with that on such a consistent daily basis, like on a minute by minute basis. And it can be a lot. And we are so fortunate here in, you know, the West, in North America, to have the privilege to create content like this, to use content like this and art as a mode of escapism, and to kind of shut off our minds and indulge in moments of joy. Whereas, you know, on the other side of the world, there are people who are actively in the middle of a war, in the middle of battlefields, essentially, who have no such refuge from their current reality. And I am so grateful that I have this privilege, but it also really kind of rocks me to my core sometimes that, you know, just by whatever stroke of fate, this is my reality versus something like that being my reality. And I think when we have the kind of privilege that we do here, it is a responsibility to our, you know, global brothers and sisters and siblings to use our voices and speak out against atrocities and to speak out against genocide and speak out against Islamophobia, speak out against anti-Semitism, draw a very severe line in the sand that we do not stand for or tolerate any of those behaviors, that what is happening right now is not to be condoned. It should be condemned. We should not be on the side of this kind of violence and atrocity, and just, it is kind of the epitome of evil humanity. And it's such a shame that we have that capacity for evil. And I'm not going to belabor The subject, I am by no means an expert on the subject. I do not share the religion. I do not share the nationality, the ethnicity with people who do. Obviously, I'm a, a Canadian Italian. My lived experience is so far removed from the lived experience of those who are Jewish or Muslim, who are, Palestinian, who are Israeli. But I also think that it's important for me to add my voice to the conversation in the fact that, in the vein of me absolutely not supporting this war, and I will forever advocate for a free Palestine and for free people and for radical love and for everyone who possibly can to embrace, we shouldn't have to call it this, but it is radical humanity at this point. And, there's tons of resources out there. We also happen to live in a time where we are being, inundated with more and more information, and our worldviews are constantly being challenged. That's a good thing, but we're also in a time where, misinformation and disinformation continue to rise, which also puts us often in a position of not knowing who to trust and not knowing what sources to trust and not being able to, turn on the news and trust what we're seeing on the media, feeling like we can't trust peer-reviewed journals and academics, and we can't trust people's lived experiences. But we also, when we hear someone's lived experiences, feel the need to challenge those experiences and are asking for, sources and academic, reports on those lived experiences. So it's forcing us into a time where we all need to be incredibly discerning, but we also really just need to open our hearts. We have innate intuition. We have innate love. We have an innate sense of what is truly right and wrong. And in these kinds of scenarios, I don't think that that's a gray area. There is nuance to what is happening, certainly, but there is just, it becomes, really philosophical, that line kind of between good and evil. And again, I'm not going to belabor it. I'm by no means an expert in any of this, but I just think it would have been remiss for me to just kind of not address it, because it's weighing very, very heavily on my mind personally. And I follow a lot of people on social media who are in the activism space, and I'm so grateful for everything that those people are doing and the ways that they are amplifying the voices of the people who are being most affected by this. And I just continue to follow along and support where I can. I think that we also have space for that kind of conversation in this realm, in this little universe, in this corner of the internet. So that's my piece on that specifically. And before we get into like an 80-minute video, I'm just going to start with my eyebrows. We're going very, very simple today. We're not going to bring out the NYX brow glue. I'm just going to use the e.l.f. brow lift, just a nice clear solid gel. And as I look out the window, I see that it's snowing, and y'all, I'm not ready. I'm super excited for like snowboarding season, but I am not mentally prepared for snow. Now, I think I've mentioned this before, but when I first started using the brow lift, and I've had it for months, like maybe well over a year. And certainly I had it before I moved into this apartment, so we're definitely going on a year. I just didn't really understand what the hype was. I was like, it just feels wet and sloppy, and I don't get that like laminate effect. I don't get the hype. It just didn't seem to do what I wanted, but I think it was just another one of those things where I was, one, probably using too much. Like I was probably like mashing my spoolie into the pot a little too aggressively, rather, than just very, very gently like dabbing it. So I was probably using, one, too much product, but two, I think it's another one of those scenarios where I just needed to let it kind of mature, maybe kind of dry out a little bit. But that is the kind of effect that I want. They feel pretty secure. It will dry down. There's still some flexibility to that formula, but that's fine. And on a day when I just kind of want them to be groomed, again, I'm like perpetually going to have bangs, so those are always going to somewhat disguise. Like I'm not going for, the baby bangs. No. So my bangs are always going to kind of disguise my eyebrows, but it is just nice to have them groomed and kind of feel like they're being held in place. And then I'm just gonna go straight into my concealer, and I didn't obviously put this stuff on camera, but I do have my normal skincare on, and even though it is not sunny, I am forever wearing sunscreen. So as per usual, I've got my mainstay here. It's the Naturium Dew Glow Moisturizer SPF 50. As I mentioned in a few videos ago, now that it's kind of cold here and we're going into those winter months and it's going to get colder and drier, that is just such a gorgeous daily SPF to have, because it's going to give you that extra boost of hydration. There was a few instances in the summer where it was like a little bit too much. Anyways, yes, concealer. This is the Kosas Revealer Concealer. I've used it aggressively that like the actual Kosas is coming off. I'm using the shade 6, although as I did mention, I think in my last video or 2 videos ago, we are coming to the point in, maybe I didn't mention this, I don't know, but we're coming to the point in the year where my tan is disappearing and I'm not going to be getting as much sun. So I could actually probably get away with, and maybe should move to shade 5 or 5.5. Still kind of going into that olive tone, but something that's not, just slightly less deep. This still absolutely works, but as we get further into the winter months and I'm seeing less and less sunlight, I am gonna want something that matches me just a little bit better. Right now we're still in a pretty good place, but there is going to be a point in time, probably closer to like January, February, where it's gonna look a little too deep for me. I've been using this every single day and I can already start to see like empty spaces through the tube. So I'm trying not to overstock on my makeup at the moment. In fact, I've been saying this for a while too, but I'm really hoping to actually film a declutter and get rid of a whole bunch of stuff, because there is just so much makeup, especially in the lip products, that have just been gathering dust in my collection to the point where they're like so far beyond expired. I need to just pull the plug on them and get rid of them. There's a few other things that like are also just sitting in my collection, but they've never been opened, so I need to pass them on to someone who will actually get proper use out of them. And I'm just trying not to open products that I know I'm not going to absolutely use. Like everything that's kind of on my vanity right now, I am constantly dipping my fingers in, so like I feel comfortable having it all open. But there is just this sense of overwhelm that I just have generally too much. You know, I'm not khaki. I don't want to have, you know, an encyclopedic collection of beauty products. It's too much for me. In terms of concealers right now, the only things I think I have open and I'm actively using is the Kosas and my REM Beauty. Now, this is obviously the Kosas is a favorite, but this is a new favorite, and it is the new Phytosurgence Spectral Sunlight Cream Bronzer. And my goodness, is this such a stunning product. I have the shade 6, which is the shade Rosy Blaze, and I have to be quite delicate with it because it came unstuck from the pan, but it's beautiful. I mean, and like that is a generous amount of a cream bronzer. It is a very, very, very stiff formula though, like, and they actually tell you that you shouldn't apply it with your fingers, but I'm gonna just rub my finger in there to kind of try and get a swatch. It is a beautiful shade. I probably could have gone one shade darker, but as it is, this is just a beautiful, beautiful tone. And I decided to go for the rosy versus the golden because I've been craving those tones in my collection. All of my other bronzers definitely lean a little bit more like orangey gold. So it's just nice to have something that is truly rosy. And you really kind of need to mash your brush in there, like don't be delicate about it. It's got a good amount of pigment, but it's not a powder where you're gonna like overload your brush. And the brush I'm using is just this e.l.f. kind of like duo fiber stippling bronzer brush. And we're just gonna go in, and honestly, I have been putting this on my face and like just wearing this and like a little bit of mascara on some days because it just does such a beautiful job of warming up my cheeks. But because it's got that rosy tone to it, it just looks like a natural flush, and like I don't actually feel like I need to put anything else on my cheeks. Oh, it's It's so pretty. I could not be happier that I pulled the trigger and purchased this. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it so much. They did such a beautiful job with this product, and they released such an incredible shade range. And there's been a number of creators who love phytosurgeons who have said this before, but like, if a small indie brand can put that much time and attention and effort into releasing such a generous, accommodating shade range, then these big brands with billions of dollars have absolutely no excuse for releasing like 1 or 2 bronzer shades, you know, that accommodate like porcelain skin tones and like maybe someone with my skin tone. There is no excuse. So Phytosurgeons is definitely out there doing it right, giving us exactly what we need in the market, and they're just high quality, high performing products. And you know, aside from it not having stuck in the pan, it's the best. And even though the bangs are in the way, I am going to put some on my forehead just so that I have the full effect. You know, if I'm outside and the wind blows, my whole face will be cohesive. But yeah, I love the way that looks. This is such a natural tone for my skin. It looks at home and I love it. It's just really, really, really pretty. Well done, Phytosurgeons. Since I opened the package when it arrived in the mail, I have used it every single day. It is in my like makeup bag that I bring everywhere. I bring down, you know, to work with me when I'm in the city. I bring it to my boyfriend's on the weekends. Like, it is permanently in my bag, like so much so that I've kind of forgotten what my experience with the Anika bronzer is, which has been like pretty much my solo ride or die bronzer for well over 2 years now. That's saying a lot. Now, my everyday makeup kind of changes depending on my mood. Like, if I'm just at home, I'm not planning on leaving at all. Like, I'm just doing, you know, some Zoom meetings and just need to kind of look and feel alive, I may just keep my face like this and throw on mascara. But if I'm feeling a little extra spicy, if I am going out, even if it's just to the grocery store to run a few errands, I have been using this on my eyes on those specific days. And again, this has kind of made its way into my daily makeup bag. I love it so much. I have absolutely no regrets about purchasing it. And this is also from Phytosurgeons, and it is the new line of their eyeshadows. And this is the Flash Fluorescence eyeshadow. I don't know, I don't have the box where it gives you the full name, but this is in the shade Astral Atmosphere. And it's kind of in line with Rosy Blaze. So we're going kind of with that like rosy tone, but it's so pretty. And it's like got that really gorgeous shine, but it also has this absolutely beautiful layer of like suspended glitter in it, which is my favorite kind of eyeshadow, because it just gives you that little something extra. And it's kind of hard to see because I've got these really intense lights here, but it's so pretty on the eyes. And so when I'm in the mood for, you know, this, I just go in with my finger and literally just place it all over the lid. I'm not going too fancy or too precise about it. It's just being placed all over the mobile lid, and then I sort of flick it out into the corner. And it's another, like, the base shade, the base pigment in this is very at home on my skin tone. So it looks quite natural, but because it's got those little, it's a celestial, so it's got those little, you know, kind of sequin sparkles in it. It's so extra pretty when the light hits it. It's so romantic. I just absolutely love it. I also have Lunar Light Wave, which is extra fun. I wore both of them on Halloween, and Lunar Light Wave is less of my like everyday makeup, but is also just, it's so stinking gorgeous. And it's more of that like kind of beigey champagne, but the sparkle in it, oh, again, they really outdid themselves with these eyeshadows, and I could not be happier with the choice I made. And I do like to put this on my lower lash line as well. So I'm just taking kind of a little flat domed brush. I don't know if this actually has a name. It is this little smudge brush. It's a tiny, like a mini Sephora collection brush set, which I just thought was like super cute. It has flowers on the handle. So I just kind of smash that around in the pot and then run that along the lower lash line. And I'm not, again, being super precise about this. I kind of like it to be a little messy. I kind of like those little glitter particles getting sort of everywhere. That's just my vibe right now. And, you know, I didn't go overboard. It's just kind of giving a little bit of extra something on the lower lash line. And I feel super happy and satisfied with that for the eyes. Now, if I was going out, I would probably go in with like either a powder liner or the matte fluid eye paint from About Face Beauty. This is the shade Weightless, which is just this nice deep brown. So I have been using this as kind of like a little bit of a liquid liner. And then I just sort of smudge that out on the lower lash line in the corners if I want just like a little something extra. Otherwise, again, I just use like a powder and do the same. I'm still not really in like the black liner space, but it does just kind of help to give a little bit of extra definition along the lash line and make the eyes pop a little bit more. And then after that, it's really just going in with mascara. And depending on the weather, depending on my mood, depending on the time of the month, I'm either using my NYX On The Rise Volume Mascara or the e.l.f. Big Mood Mascara in the waterproof formula. But because of how much I love a waterproof mascara and the way that it kind of like holds the curl in my lashes, we are going to go with the e.l.f. Big Mood today. And as I apply my mascara, we're also going to talk about one more thing, which ties into, you know, the whole, the collective grief that we are experiencing, the collective horror that we are experiencing. And that is the power of art. And it also ties into another current event, which happened last week, I think, or the week before. I can't remember. Who knows what time is like these days. But that is the tragic death of Matthew Perry, who, for those of you who don't know, his kind of claim to fame, the role that has its forever place in so many of our hearts is as Chandler Bing on the show Friends. And you know, he died a very young death. He was only, I think, 54 years old. Again, I'm not going to belabor or, you know, go into the details of his death, but that was another instance of collective grief where someone who has touched the hearts of so many people around the world through his art, through his comedy, was lost in an incredibly tragic and devastating way in an unexpected moment. And you see the entire world, or at least your entire world, whatever bubble you exist in, collectively grieve over that. And it can be quite disorienting to go from like one moment to having an experience of collective horror and shock and fear in the midst of the crisis, like what's happening in, you know, Gaza. And then the next moment, there's this collective grieving over someone who is, for all intents and purposes, a wealthy Hollywood star. And I noticed a lot of criticisms on various accounts who are posting about the Matthew Perry death and kind of, you know, the legacy that he left behind and our favorite moments from Friends and whatever. And there's a lot of comments on like, well, you know, why are you talking about this and not the children dying in Palestine? And on the one hand, I absolutely, of course we should be drawing attention to what's happening. Of course we can't stop talking about what is going on in Palestine and what is going on, you know, on the West Bank in this war and this, our literal bearing of witness to a real-time genocide. But on the other hand, we also should absolutely hold space for a person who could do exactly what this war is doing, and that is to bring people together in conversation, to bring people together in collective compassion and understanding, and, you know, in the opposite of what's happening in Gaza, bring together people in a moment of collective joy. And that needs to be celebrated as much as, you know, a war and a genocide needs to be condemned, because that's what we are actually living for. We are living for these sparks of humanity. We are living for these moments of joy and laughter and being able to share a common human experience regardless of our stations in life. And, you know, if there's one character on television who kind of accomplished that, it was sort of Chandler Bing, who was awkward and never quite settled, but funny and sardonic and real and, you know, attractive, but not necessarily in a overly conventional way, and well into his 30s still hadn't really quite figured it out yet. And there is just something so human about that character who Matthew Perry played, and the then very tragic and intense experiences that Matthew Perry, as the actor and human being behind this character, was going through, that so many other people in this world also experience and can relate to. And it really just speaks to the power of art and why storytelling is so important and why laughter is so important. So yes, we need to be using our voices to amplify what is happening in the world and to be speaking out against these kinds of atrocities. But I think we also do need to hold space for those moments of collective grief when so many of us have been touched by the power of art. And I think in this specific space, so many of us do consider ourselves artists, and we find ourselves in these spaces because art is what speaks to us, and art is how we in turn speak to the world and speak through our lived experiences and express our own humanity, whether it's, you know, the very human feelings of despair or joy or fear or whatever. We're here because of art in one way or another. Inevitably, it all comes down to that. And when we experience these moments in history and we are bearing witness to massive world-changing events, I don't think we can lose sight of why we do what we do. It makes it all that much more important. Whether we're using that art to communicate those tragedies or whether we're using that art to provide that emotional, psychological, and sometimes physical kind of refuge from that storm. So I think, but those things are not mutually exclusive. Collectively grieving for a people in a place far, far away because of what they're going through, and collectively grieving over someone who we only have a parasocial relationship with, but who's still touched so many of us, those things can exist in the same day, in the same person, in the same body, and it doesn't make one thing better or worse. I don't know. Those are just kind of my thoughts on some of what I've been seeing on social media. And again, that is all through the lens of the fact that I am speaking from a personally very privileged perspective and from a privileged life. And so many of us are in that same boat. And so of course I can have those kind of diametrically opposed experiences, but I still do think that it's quite important. We should be continuing to fight for, you know, everyone having moments of joy, everyone to have freedom and space in this world to, you know, to live freely without fear, to live without discrimination, to live without the threat of war or bombings or, you know, just that moments of safety. And I think we just take so much of that for granted. And I think that's why these two things are so important to talk about kind of in tandem, because you look at the life of an individual like Matthew Perry, and while he was quite vocal about some of his personal struggles, at the end of the day, you never really understand what an individual is going through. And it's so easy to take for granted a life that looks highly privileged from the outside, that looks very great and wonderful from the outside, but there is constantly the inner turmoil. And I think similarly, especially here in the West, we so easily take for granted the way the world works. And it is moments like these, whether it's a mass atrocity and, you know, an ongoing genocide right before our eyes, or whether it's the loss of a celebrity life who brought joy to so many people, we need our worldviews constantly challenged. It really speaks to the importance of us living collectively and not, you know, kind of in our own individual silos, because I think the biggest gift of the human experience is our association with others, our relationship with others, our shared humanity. And you keep hearing terms like, you know, divisive and fragmented and, you know, sides, and there's always kind of going to be that, but right now it just seems so much more elevated because I think of this, you know, information access and social media and being plugged in 24/7. I don't know if any of this is making sense. I did really want to just kind of take a moment to talk about some of this stuff, because I'm not seeing too many other people, at least on YouTube, kind of bringing those topics to light. And I'm sure so much of it has to do with, you know, not wanting to compromise revenue streams and capitalism. And a lot of the people who I follow on YouTube are talking about this on their Instagram, where you have, you know, you can share more consistently, that your wider audience is there, and it's not necessarily going to affect what's happening here. But I personally just like to, I'm a long form content girly. I'm sharing all kinds of thoughts and opinions and resources and materials on my Instagram like so many others, but I also find it helpful to just sometimes talk, even if it is just to a camera in a room by myself. But on that note, my face is nearly done. The everyday fall face is almost accomplished, and I'm super happy with where it's at. And like I said before, sometimes I do just go ahead and leave it as is with the Phytosurgence Rosy Blaze, because it's so pretty and so natural, and it like almost it's got this like no makeup vibe, and I'm down with that. But there is obviously the occasion when I do want just a teeny bit more blush, just a little bit more pop to my cheeks. And it is that time of year where we kind of love the Fiorzy cheek a la khaki. And I've got 3 kind of blushes in rotation at the moment. One is another Phytosurgence project. It is the Skin Spark blush in the shade Sublimate, which is this beautiful kind of like burnt leaf rosy red. And it's so pretty. And I wouldn't have this if it were not for my friend, the one and only darling Chani. It's such a beautiful color on me. I'm obsessed with it. I use it all of the time. That's kind of if I want to go blushy, but again, kind of more natural, because it is a tone that's very at home on my skin. If I want more of that like kind of Fiorzy cheek, I have been picking up this again, and honestly, I probably shouldn't even be using this anymore because I've had it for so long now, but this is the Ritual Defee Color Nectar Pigment Balm in the shade Glasswing, which is this like popsicle berry tone, and I absolutely love it. It's honestly not too far from the shade Sublimate. They're actually kind of sister shades, which I didn't even really realize. This one, Glasswing, definitely has more like berry in it, kind of more purple, and the pigmentation and formula is different. Like the finish is a little bit more dewy with the Color Nectar Pigment Balm, but that's probably why I've been pairing these, or at least, you know, rotating between them. And then the last one is a newer addition. I picked up the Refi little kit, I can't remember what it was called, but it had a lip gloss, a lip liner, and then a little mini blush in it during the Sephora sale. It was like the only thing that I bought during the Sephora sale, purely out of curiosity. And it is the cream blush in the shade Cherry. And I'm glad that I have the mini. It's honestly kind of the same size as the Ritual Defee. This is 1.5 grams. And even this, I think, is gonna take me eons to use. And it is a red. And I don't, if you've used the Refi blushes before, does she have other blushes? I don't know. but she's pigmented, okay? That is like just me dabbing, literally tapping my finger into the cream, and it has so much pigment. I was just fooling around earlier this morning and just kind of like mashed my finger in there and put on my cheeks. So it was like, oh God, I already went overboard. So I think you do kind of need to be careful with this one. But it's very, very pretty and just kind of like a true red tone in a cream formula, which is nice. And because it's small, it's just easy to kind of add that one extra option into my makeup bag. But I think today I'm going to go to my Old Faithful and use the Color Nectar Pigment Balm from Ritual de Fille in the shade Glasswing. And I'm just using this e.l.f. It's technically a highlighter brush, but I really like it to apply blush. And I'm, as always, kind of going right for the apples of the cheek and then up from there. This 100%, I mean, just based on the amount that I've used it, I bought, I think, 3 of the Color Nectar Pigment Balms when they first launched, and it's the one that I have used the most. It's just truly one of my favorite blushes of all time. It's so, so, so pretty. I love the tone, and it really does give that kind of like burr, it's cold outside kind of fjordsy cheek. And I like it. And my cheeks will kind of like eat this over time, so it always kind of feels a little intense at first, but then, you know, within an hour, it just looks, it looks like skin. I love it. There we go. And then just a teeny tiny bit of powder. I'm still using my Cheekbone Beauty mattifying moon dust. And you know, I'm not really a powder person, but I think this is just truly my all-time favorite. Not that I've tried, you know, so many, but it's just good. It's good. I love that it's from an Indigenous brand that also happens to be Canadian. And I'm really not using a lot. Like, I never go right into the pan. I kind of, whatever, because it broke, whatever has loosened onto the lid is just what I dab my brush into, and then I kind of like flick it off and just tap, and it just does a perfect job of kind of knocking down that shine. But my natural oils will inevitably kind of peek back through after a while, and I kind of just get like sweaty and anxious throughout the day, so I will get oily. But you know, to kind of start off the look, that's perfect. Now for lips, we got to keep it simple for an everyday face for the fall. I can't be bothered with going too hard on anything specific. There's a very intense rotation happening in my backpack right now, but the one that I've been reaching for the most is this Naturium Phyto Glow Lip Balm. It's a new line of like nudes that they released, and this is in the shade Spice. Now, I had never tried any of them before, any of this like line of product before, but she is thick. Like when you push it out, like you can feel kind of the viscosity of the formula. It's quite thick and fairly pigmented. Again, this is the shade Spice. It does have one of these angled applicators. This one is just plastic, it's not metal. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of pigmentation to it, but the formula itself is so soothing and hydrating, and I love it. And just the overall effect on the lips is gorgeous. And it's like not so pigmented, at least for me and my lips. Like this is very much a my lips but better gloss lip balm. But I don't have to be like too precious about putting it on without a mirror. I love it. And it does have like the subtlest of subtle vanilla scents to it, but like it's so gentle. It's barely perceptible, which is nice. I'm also kind of suffering from a cold, so I don't have full access to my olfactory, but there is just a teeny tiny bit of fragrance to this, but it's perfect. And yeah, this kind of became an instant favorite, very much in the same vein as like the Phytosurgeons. Like as soon as I used it, I was like, okay, yep, I think you've gone straight to the top shelf. And now my hair is still quite wet because I did shower not too long ago. So, you know, it's not exactly what I would like it to be because it still needs to dry. But that is my everyday face for fall. It's very simple. It's very natural looking. It's very comfortable, it's very easy. And on Wednesdays when I have to wake up super, super early to head down to Toronto, it's something that I can do in a very short amount of time without like needing to fuss too much, and I still feel and look human when I go out the door, and like I feel ready for the day. So all great things. Love all of these products so much. Those Phytosurgeons products, the Naturium lip balm, as I said, have easily made it right to the top shelf in a very short amount of time. I'm super impressed with all of them and cannot really recommend them highly enough. Like, they're just so good. I think obviously the Kosas is kind of a cult favorite and has been for years now, so that's an obvious one. But for the other ones that are kind of like newer to the market and maybe less people have sort of tried them, they're just so, so good. And from someone who, you know, is self-proclaimed real girl, it's just good. You don't have to be like super special or fancy or good at makeup to use those. They're easy, they're good, and they're just like great for an elevated look, absolutely, or just a perfect everyday face. So yeah, I'm happy. And now I'm like ready for my evening, because I actually didn't do this morning when the day started. But you know what? Still got many more hours left, and I'm sure I can accomplish many more things now that I feel a little bit more human because of the beautiful face of makeup. And just to quickly touch back on my points today, you've probably been seeing a lot of this on social media, but like radical love, y'all. Radical love. Radical humanity. We cannot lose sight of that. It's so, so, so easy to just turn off and become apathetic and sit back and not engage in everything that's happening. But I think if more of us act collectively with and like lead with our hearts and lead with that innate sense of humanity, I think we're all gonna be a little bit better off for it. And, you know, for anyone who is watching this who is being directly affected by what's happening, I just want you to know that I am sending you so much love, and that you have a safe space here on this channel in this teeny tiny little corner of the internet. And for the rest of y'all, you know that I love you. That's everything from me, I think. I am going to head off, continue drinking my tea out of my Hocus Pocus mug, because even though Halloween is past, spooky season is still alive and well here. Okay. It's time for me to go. I'll see y'all in my next one. Love you.